I was kind of looking over your stuff because we got to know you when you were here, and arguably your best season that you had was here in Texas, or is your only All-Star year for sure. And if you look at WAR and that kind of stuff, I think you matched it in Minnesota. But I was looking at your history being in Minnesota, and you got called up. You had real good success, like your first start. And then you got sent down during the year, and then you come back, and then you're pretty good for a while, and then you get sent down again. Like, what is that like? That must be really when you talk about like a lot of living or a lot of life, like that helps shape you, I suppose, right?
Yeah, that's the journey, man. That's the thing that people, when I got to 10 years, or now that I've had 11 and change, whatever it is, people ask about how great it's been to play a long time. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, there were times I was hoping to get tendered a contract the next year going through arbitration. There was times that I was hoping to not get DFA'd in 2016 and 2017. It just wasn't always roses for me all the time. It was ups and downs. It was trying to figure out how to do things a little different, do it a little bit better. And I think the 2017 season was a really hard year to start because I went through kind of a shoulder strain all year of 2016, pitched through it when probably should have just taken time off and didn't. That's not in my DNA. I just wanted to pitch. Pitched through it, and then had the worst start of 9 starts of my career right in a row to start 2017. And 4 years in, get sent down. And let me tell you, there were times that stretched the first month and a half, I was basically going in and asking to be sent down because we were really good. And it just felt like every 5 days I was the reason we were losing. And that's a bad place to be. You want to talk about people telling you on social media how bad you are. They didn't have to tell me how bad I was then. I felt awful about myself. And it was just but I got sent down, and what a refreshing time were the Twins. That was the first year for Derek Falvey and Thad Levine in Minnesota. And they sent down one thing for me. They said, hey, over the last 2.5 seasons when you struggled, or the last year and a half when you struggled, when your fastball's in the strike zone over 50% of the time, you haven't been beaten with an ERA around 3. When your fastball's not in the zone 50% of the time, you get hit. And I was like, wow, maybe this is a lot simpler than I'm making it right now. And the rest of the year when I got called up, I threw the ball pretty well and had a pretty good 2-year stretch there. But there's a lot of life that happens when you go through ups and downs. And like you said, it definitely forms who you are, and allowed me, I think, to have a different perspective when I started being the veteran, being able to talk to young guys going through struggles.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because I'm reading a book called The MVP Machine. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not familiar with it.
But it is about
Ben Lindbergh. You're probably familiar with Ben. Lindbergh or Travis Sawchuk? No, maybe not.
I'm going to be honest. I am not much of a reader.
Okay.
You know what? Maybe I come across as a reader, but let me tell you.
You do track as a reader. You fooled me well.
Yeah, no. But it's really about using analytics, and it's not really about developing players as much as it is about, like, getting the most out of players now. And even a guy, like you said, here you are, you've been highly successful, you made the big leagues, but you're kind of struggling. What do I do here? But you were given that little analytic note by Thad Levine, and that really helped you. So my question was, what is your experience in using analytics? I guess you have that. But do you have other, how is analytics, have you used it to help shape your career at all, if you have?
Yeah, I absolutely have. At the end of September in 2022, when Caleb Cotham in Philadelphia said, hey, do you want to make your slider go a little bit more to the left and see what that looks like today in a bullpen? I was like, sure, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I never threw my gyro slider again until this year. I went straight to a sweeper from that bullpen to my next start. And it was all based on, what do I think a pitch that moves to the left more does for my sinker that moves to the right more? So that was a big part of it. Then when I, started throwing that cutter in Texas in 2021, talking with Lance Lynn, talking with Jake Odorizzi, guys that threw a cutter, threw a 2-seam going both ways, it was a lot of that question, a lot of that conversation of, what does this cutter do for me to lefties? And when I started throwing the cutter, it started helping me with splits to lefties. All of a sudden, like, I had a pitch that stayed in on the lefty and allowed me to get weak contact and get more outs against lefties. And then this year, I started in the off season of trying to think about, okay, what does it look like to throw my gyro slider to lefties again? Lefties started adjusting to the sweeper, And what does it look like to use this tight slider that I use my whole life to lefties again? And I started doing that again, just based off looking at, okay, I use this gyro slider 15% of the time to lefties before I threw my sweeper. I'm throwing my sweeper 2 to 3% against lefties. I'm eliminating a pitch when I should be throwing 6 pitches to everybody. So yeah, analytics, if you know how to use them and you can find people who can put them in verbiage for players to take them to the field and take them to the mound, in my case, it's important. But you're going to lose me when it's just throw your slider 50% of the time and you're going to be really good, because that's just not how it works.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because both things you just described are analytics. The thing that they sent you when they sent you down, right? People think analytics and think it's got to be very, very complicated. It was a simple answer for you, at least according to them, of pounding the zone there. I wonder though, when you talk about that 2017 change, were there other things, other pitches in your repertoire that had to change, like what you're talking about with the cutter? Because I don't think people think about that. If I'm going to add this, that's going to enhance something that goes the other way, and just as a full repertoire. So when they told you to emphasize just fastball in the zone, did that change anything else related to that, or is that just straightforward?
I didn't shift anything other than trying to make sure I was throwing fastballs in the strike zone, and then really just paying attention to, am I getting myself in bad counts where I either, one, have to throw a fastball in the strike zone, and that's not ever where you want to be as a pitcher, or two, am I getting predictable where now he's definitely not going to throw a fastball in the strike zone, so now he's going to throw off speed, and it makes your off speed worse. So no, I didn't shift a single thing except for, I'm going to make sure that if I throw 2 fastballs in the first 3 pitches, both of those fastballs are in the strike zone, because I've got a lot of movement and my 4-seam and 2-seam play totally different. And I'm going to make sure that I'm forcing contact and making hitters swing, because what started happening was hitters would take, and because I wasn't in the zone enough. So then all of a sudden I'm behind 2-0, behind 2-1, and I'm in bad counts. Well, if I can get the hitter thinking I have to swing, now I'm actually going to get chase on those off-speed pitches outside the strike zone that I wasn't getting.